Oh, I have not question. Is this mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I apparently didn't make myself one. Oh, I did.
I thought I had already this from.
Ready?
Is it different?
This is June 18th, 2025. Regular meeting of the Fairfax County School Board Public Engagement Committee will now come to order. We will now vote to approve the minutes of the September 3rd, 2024, October 1, 2020, of the several minutes. December 3rd, 2024, October 1, 2024, December 10, 2024, February 11, 2025, March 18, 2025, and May 13, 2025, meeting of the Public Engagement Meeting. Do I have a motion?
Ms. St. John Cunning, that is with leave for the clerk to make grammatical and formatting changes if necessary, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So moved, or, yeah,
Do I
a
have
second.
motion? Okay.
I can move. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Could I suggest something?
Sure.
Use your mic.
Let's try to maintain a consistency in naming names of board members who vote a certain way. You know, sometimes we say initials, just MM. Sometimes we say full names. Sometimes we call him Mr. Moon. I think just using the last names alone might suffice the needs.
That will be,
Except for Anderson, because sometimes it could be tough.
Yeah, I would prefer to be S. Anderson if possible, because I think
Okay.
that makes it a little clearer.
Okay, other than that, because I see it as different versions.
so
here.
that is part of why we asked for leave to make the grammatical and formatting. So we consider that a formatting change that we'll make on the back end to make sure there's consistency.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay. Unanimous? I call on Ms. Anderson for item 1.03, Strategic Governance Manual Proclamation Updates.
Okay, so the last time I came, we talked through the changes to the strategic governance manual related to proclamations, and you guys had given me leave to go forth and conquer. Upon further look at the list of proclamations, I realized that the clerk team had added some suggestions in that were not to discuss. So I wanted to make sure that we actually came back and had a full discussion rather than just approve it without. That I was actually helpful to have that break, because if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to just walk through some of the changes to make sure that everybody's on board. One of the things that we're recommending is to remove the proclamations related to LT members that are leaving, and instead have it be a board letter. And the reason that is because board letters may be very helpful to them in their future endeavors if they're looking. And so you'll see on page 1, it gives the board chair the ability to provide a letter to retiring or resigning leadership staff members. So it takes that language out of the annual proclamations, because there's a little bit of a consistency issue with the fact that we haven't done them for every single LT members that's leaving, or oftentimes we have to actually do, because of the way the meeting schedule lies, we would have to do it after and then have them come back, which sometimes isn't possible. So this way, it just works without us being able to necessarily doing a full proclamation, but it would still allow us to represent our appreciation for those individuals. So is everybody good with that? Yeah.
I do want to give voice to the fact that I think that, based on, anecdotal evidence, the staff that I've spoken with have really appreciated the ability to come back and receive those. I know the last set I think we did was with Mark Greenfelder and Grace Taylor, and it's almost a year ago. But I know they felt very honored by, having that. And I fully understand the fact that there isn't complete consistency, but if it's...
I'm also going to go out, and I don't mean to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I'm also going to go out and say that it hasn't been done with fidelity, nor could it potentially be done with fidelity for all LT members that are moving on. And so I think that this gives us a way to not have it be so obvious when it isn't.
I understand that.
yeah.
And I'm not questioning the intent in any way here. I think it's good for them to have a board letter. But I do think it's been appreciated in the past, and I just wanted to share.
And it wouldn't be precluded from an individual board member still bringing a proclamation. It would just not necessarily be part of the annual list. Okay. Some of the changes that were made within this, on the second page and going on to the third, some of the changes that were made were putting things in alignment with what we're actually doing. So, like the Read Across America, we've now pretty consistently been doing National School Librarian and Library Month. So some of those changes have been made. LGBTQ History Month was added because it was a consistent one that was continually being brought. So some of those changes are also here. Where the most changes occurred was actually in the way the staff volunteers and recognitions list was being done. And so some of those were in response to staff members that maybe didn't feel the groupings were appropriate. And so I think that a lot of those recommendations and some of the alignment has actually been done to ensure that the month that we're honoring them is in any way, shape, or form on alignment with the national recognition for those positions. So if you guys are good with the list, not everything that the clerk team was had recommended was necessarily adopted. So there were a few adjustments that I made personally, because like Teacher and School Staff Appreciation Week, that's how many of our schools are actually doing that. So I think that it aligns with how things are being done. But like National School Psychologists or Psychology Awareness Week, that was aligned with the November time and not necessarily put forward with the counselors and everybody else that it was normally put with. So, Christina, did I encapsulate that right?
Yes, there is one change that Ms. St. John Cunningham and Ms. Marin has brought to our attention. Earlier in the list, it says School Board Scholarship Award, and that should be School Board Character Scholarship Award, so we just need to make that change. Because there was a question as to whether that was a whole separate award, but that's the character award that we give and that the board actually just gave at the last June meeting. So we just need to add the word character in there.
Do we want scholarship to still be in there, or should we just have it be the character award since that's what we call it?
I think it's up to you all. It is technically a scholarship. So the Laura Ashley Piper Award has money attached to it, as does the character award, but I will say that is every year contingent upon the groups that fund it having the funds available. So we always check with them every year before we move forward with doing it, but we do let the students know it is contingent upon ensuring funding is available.
So it's possible that we could still give the award but not necessarily give the scholarship. So is it possible that we would put at the end, so it would be the Laura Ashley Piper Award parentheses scholarship, and that way it isn't contingent on it?
Yeah, I think that would work. So whatever we do with the school board character, I think we just need to be consistent with Laura Ashley Piper. So
Okay.
if we're doing Laura Ashley Piper Award and parentheses scholarship, then school board character award and parentheses scholarship. I
Does
think that would work.
Does that work for everybody?
Can I raise a question about the other June? So last meeting, I think we saw how heavy June can be, in part because we have the 4 Heritage Holiday proclamations, but also because it's the end of the calendar year and people are trying to put in their individual proclamations. Is there a way to split those, and obviously this is with deference to the clerk, but to split those between the 2 June meetings so they don't all fall in the first meeting?
Yes, so originally that is what we do. The reason it was so heavy this year is because originally we thought we were going to have to move the June 26th
Got it.
meeting to this location.
Okay.
And we wanted to ensure that everybody who is receiving the award had the same ability to be recognized in an equal setting. So assuming that we don't have any issues with location, we will make sure to split. And the reason we do some of them as June and July is to give us also the ability, if students can't make it, if they're on vacation, et cetera, that's helpful as well.
And I tried to make sure without duplicating things, I tried to make sure that we could just indicate it would be or July on those, just so that it made sense. I don't know if this is going to be helpful for everybody, but for me personally, it's helpful just to understand where things all are, so that if we have a month that's a little lighter, then it might be a place that we can put our own to slide in. You're giving me that look.
In the chart, I do notice we have Laura Ashley Piper twice. We just need to take them out of August because it should only be
I
in
got you.
June.
Oh, that was my fault. Yeah, I got you. And I recognize the fact that we need to make it consistent if we change the scholarship to be. Yeah, I got that. Okay. The other thing that was noted is that we didn't include the recognitions on this list. And so I guess my question to you guys is, would this be more helpful, including recognitions as well, at the end of the document rather than in the proclamations section? So that it would include recognitions as well? Well, it's VHSL, it's... No, I'm saying create this as one whole calendar, like sample calendar, and then put it at the end of the whole section rather than, right now it's just embedded in the proclamation section.
I think that would work. And I think maybe if we write it as sample calendar, so that way it gives some leeway if things need to change at any point.
I think this is a really good visual because just by looking at it, you see, oh, heavy month, light month, and then we can see where we could, June, we should split it up to 2, and then if it is VHSL within those months, because they do come at different times, then where we can put it in. I think this visual is really good.
And I will tell you that I think that I'm still missing some of them based on the fact that there were some that were added on that list. So I'm going to double check that they're all included on the list so I would ask for flexibility to just make sure that this part of the document is updated when we send it to the whole board for a vote.
One other thing is, for the past couple of years, well, at least this year and last year, I've brought proclamations recognizing our science fair winners and our national merit winners. And I'm happy to do that, individually with my 2 allotted proclamations. But I would like consideration in the future of having those as part of our annual process, just because those are system-wide. And
Can we,
so.
is it okay if we put them in as a recognition? Because it's a
Yeah.
little bit different than
Yeah.
if we put them in as a proclamation.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course, yeah.
so tell me one more time.
So they will be brought at the next meeting, but it's the ISEF finalists, the people that go to the International Science Fair. And then it's our National Merit Scholarship winners. And I mean, those would fall probably in June or July, probably ideally June, while students are still potentially around. Because I think the last announcements come out at the beginning of June.
So in theory, we could do it at the start of the year?
No, it should be.
It needs to be in July.
It needs to be June, ideally June or July. Right, because they go to college. The ISEF ones could potentially be in May, because, I think that's usually April, May timeframe.
I don't know this number off the top of my head. I've seen you massively signing things. So National Merit Scholarship winners, how many are we talking?
It's about 48, I think, this year, and the ISEF was about 10 or 12,
Okay,
I think.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that it was feasible within. So just talking about the logistics of that, because of the recognition process that we typically use, is that going to be one recognition where you have everybody come up and do one picture? Okay, so.
We
Madam
could
Clerk-
either do it like that, or if it's too many kids for one picture, we could always do, we've done things before, we've split it by regions. We work with the 2 photographers that staff the school board meeting, because they're phenomenal, Donnie and Karen, and they usually will guide us on the best way to get the best picture for the students. So I think thinking about the way that we could do it, especially if we're doing it in June for National Merit, we could actually kind of build it in where we have the VHSL and team recognitions, and then around the same time, we also have National Merit, and that way we could just build it into that meeting, knowing that that's going to be the meeting where it's at. And that would allow us also to figure out proclamations based off of knowing that we're going to have a big recognition area. But I think it's possible to do it just very similarly to the way we do VHSL. It would also make it easier on the clerk team, to be honest, because then you're not writing. The proclamations, trying to get all the kids in is hard to do and stay within the word limits that we try to set. And so if we were doing a recognition, they would more so get their own certificate, which I think makes it easier for them.
And yeah, just in terms of numbers, I checked with Barb before this, and I think we have 6 attending as of now for both. So it's not going to be a big crowd, in part because
gotcha.
people have left. Yeah.
I have one question. I fully and completely understand the national merit. My concern is if we add in ISF, what are we missing that other kids are involved with? So does that one make more sense to continue having it be member-driven, but national merit, go ahead and have that one be part of it? Just because I worry that if we have, we're going to miss something that somebody else is passionate about. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, we're always going to miss something. My sense is that, you know, we go to a significant effort to do VHSL, and I think we've just oftentimes forgotten about some of the academic things.
I agree.
Right? So, I mean, certainly, you know, international robotics could be one other thing, right? But I think as people think of them, I, as one board member, would be happy for those to become annualized as opposed to,
Well,
yeah.
okay, so there's another aspect of this, in that the clerk team is going to kill me for saying this out loud. One of the things that's on the next couple of pages is that we have the ability as school board members to actually request individual recognition ceremonies to be done. And so what I'm wondering is, and again, I'm asking the clerk teams to put their hands on the top of their heads. Would it be possible for us to have 2 annual proclamations and an annual recognition? So rather than just having, because that way, if you have different board members that want some sort of recognition, it doesn't necessarily take up more time in the meeting than having an annual proclamation, but it is very different because it does change the dynamic of how we go about in the recognition itself. Madam Clerk, do you see any concern with that?
Are you talking about a whole separate meeting from the regular meeting, or embedding in the regular meeting like we do now?
Embedding it into the regular meeting. So basically, every board member would have 2 proclamations, annual proclamations that they could bring, like 2 member-brought proclamations, and we would have 1 annual recognition that we could suggest.
I don't see an issue with that, just board members need to be aware that can link then. I think if we do that, the same rules need to apply, that the board members don't get to speak to the recognition.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's where I could see there being a large amount of time taken. And I think we need, if we're going to do that, we also need to set in deadlines just to make sure that the clerk team isn't being, I don't want to say blindsided, but that we have enough time to prepare what we need to prepare for the meetings and make sure, right, that we're not overwhelmed.
Is there any reason that it couldn't follow the same timelines as the current annual proclamation, or the member-brought proclamation timelines?
I don't see any issues with that. I would just ask for deadlines for that to be in there. And it would make sense so that we're not confusing the staff to have multiple different deadlines, so it makes sense to keep the same deadlines, but it would be helpful if we have deadlines, because there are times when staff realize, oh no, I want to, you know, my school board member wants to do this, and they'll come to us 48, 24 hours before a meeting, and that's just too hard to fit in, right? It's too hard to get the kids invited, it's too hard to get things properly done. So I think if we could set deadlines, that would be my one concern. And then with the ability with annual recognitions that scheduling is also done the same way we do with the member-driven proclamations.
Exactly.
That the chair and clerk have prerogative to work with them if a meeting is overloaded, to push if possible.
Exactly.
So I think just having the same kind of flexibility that we have with proclamations is what I would ask if we're going to do annual recognition or member-driven recognitions.
So I would like to make a motion that we add National Merit Scholars to the list of annual recognitions as a category on its own, And my concern is that we don't have the language to look at. So what I would recommend is that the next meeting that with PEC, that PEC takes this issue up with creating the language in the governance manual related to expanding the possibilities of member driven. Because right now, we don't have any rules related to member brought recognitions. So this would just be something moving forward that PEC would need to look at in terms of what are the guidelines, and that gives us all a little bit of time to think about that.
Would you want to wait on all of the changes or move forward with changes with the understanding that we'll also have a second change with the member-driven recognitions?
Yes, so it would be so what I'm suggesting is that this meeting, we approve adding National Merit Scholarship winners to the list of, and it's, I'm sorry that these don't have page numbers, I should have done that. But it's under number 4, so the annual recognitions list, add national merit to that. And then moving forward, I would suggest that PEC brings this issue up again to look at the last bullet on the list where it says that we may submit. So basically, no, go up, it's up there. It's that last bullet in red. So that one right there is where you just need more information because right now we don't have enough stipulation related to how that looks. So what I would suggest is that PEC continue to work on getting that fleshed out to meet Mr. McElveen's concern that it shouldn't just necessarily be a part of the proclamation process.
Okay, I'm somewhat confused. The letters in black ink, they are current guidelines, correct? Right? And then we do already have a provisions related to guidelines for other student recognitions. There's a procedure already provided.
There's not a procedure for member-driven, it just says we can bring them. We don't have any stipulations on what the rules are around bringing them. So I just numbered the pages really
I
fast.
thought it says individuals may recommend. I thought there was a step to follow. With all the, am I reading something really wrong?
What I think I'm saying is that it would be you would create the stipulations around there being one a year. The same, it follows.
I think what you're confused about is the guideline is for the students that would be eligible for the recognitions, and it's got the recognition during the meetings, but if you look at that red line on this,
It's on page 6.
it would be on page 6. The last bullet is a new suggestion that Ms. Anderson said that each school board member could bring an additional recognition, but there is no guideline for how the school board member brings the recognition. The guidelines for recognition is for the actual how they will be recognized, but not how the process we have to follow.
But it doesn't put the timelines on it.
That information is missing.
And
How you can do it, not how many you can do and how.
And that last bullet, it is not a new bullet. That last bullet was already existing language in the document that was just moved. That's the only reason it's red, is because it was put into the list.
Okay.
So it's just a formatting change.
And so from what the clerk has indicated or has requested would be that the guidelines would be very similar to proclamations. So that's kind of what the language we'd be looking at more or less.
And I think that it's something that PEC could move forward to discuss.
Right, so we're happy to bring forth to the next meeting the language that we would want for member-driven recognitions that we can bring to you all for the next meeting.
I just don't feel comfortable with us going forward with that without you guys actually having a chance to see the actual language, just to make sure that we're all fully on board. Otherwise, then this is what I would suggest that we send to the full board, moving those few things that we discussed.
I was just going to ask a quick question on that. That would be subject to the same board member approval matrix that we have for the proclamations, right? So you'd have to.
I think so. I mean, we would have to, those would be one of the things that we would decide.
I think that's one of the things we would have to decide with recognitions is whether that would be subject. Because with the recognition language, it's not written language necessarily that gets supported by board members. So I don't know actually that we would need to do the support. It may be more that, let me give some more thought to that and Mr. McElveen, and as to whether that would need to be done. But I think that's partly why Ms. Anderson's asking for us to bring the language back on how we would do member-driven recognitions. So let me give more thought to how that would play out from a logistical standpoint.
Right, we just have such a clear process with the member-driven proclamations that I think that this is an opportunity to ensure that we have that same level of process related to other areas of recognition as well.
Thank you.
So if Ms. Anderson's made the motion, is there a second?
Second. Okay, well, Mr. Moon can second it.
You want to call for the vote?
Oh, can we have a vote? I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Hold on one second.
And
Ms.
this
Brown's
is-
going to put the actual motion language up on this.
Yeah, this is just to add the National Merit Scholars to the list of recognitions, annual recognitions. With the leave to add the language that's appropriate as to where it's placed. So it will be either in June or July, and with a brief description of the reason that we would be including it on the list. I think it works.
And we voted on it, and it was unanimous. And Mr. Moon seconded the motion.
Otherwise, we just need to approve the changes to be brought forward to the full board. And also, I will make the changes that we have suggested, moving the full example calendar to the end of the document to include. I would ask that the clerk team help me make sure that we have the VHSL recognitions in the appropriate place on the document. So I would ask for flexibility to be able to do that, to place the annual recognitions where they're appropriate.
So before we move forward on this, I did want to bring up a point that one of our board members that is not present was interested in. And I think we can discuss this at another time in terms of the individual proclamation that is being brought forth by an individual member requesting that be signed by the board member. And I know we had been discussing that signature option. So the option exists? The option exists. Okay. Okay. Okay, I just wanted,
Yep.
yeah, I just wanted to honor that request, and that makes sense. Okay,
If we
thank you.
add the third because we had talked about doing the third signature as well, and so my team has looked into it. The issue that we run into is that there aren't like we put the proclamation to protect it in a small flat black holder. They don't make it in the size that we would need to add that third, because we would need to make the proclamations bigger. And so we don't have holders for those proclamations, which is why I would recommend that we stick with the official one as the clerk and the chair, and that if we do another, and then we could have multiple ones where the board member who brought it could sign and give it to the individual as well. And that could be the board member and the chair, or just the board member, but it's hard to add a third one consistently and make sure that the proclamations stand up to the quality that we're used to.
Thank you, that makes sense. I think the fact that the option exists satisfies the request.
Okay.
Oh, do we have a second? I'll second it. All those in favor? It's unanimous with Mr. McElveen being away from the table. I call on Ms. 1.04, updates to the school member toolkit. I call on Ms. Anderson to give us her updates.
Okay, I just passed out a document that was hot off the presses this morning, and I have asked Ms. Brown to post this to board docs as well for the public. Ms. Brown, can you show the folder? The folder, so I can talk through it a little bit? So the first thing that I am requesting is that the clerk team actually populate the folder that I had talked to you guys about last time. That will give us one cohesive place to put all committee information in one location. This is a board tool that I am requesting be put in the 2024-27 term folder. The benefit of doing this means that we're going to be able to actually have some sort of historical knowledge in that folder that is going to be broken, and I'll show you in just a second, but it would be broken up into advisory committees and also standing committees. And so in addition, it would also have a school board member toolkit, and it would have advisory committee training information, in addition to creating an archive folder that is actually going to give us the ability to archive information that may be from previous committees and things like that. So the idea here is that, Ms. Brown, if you could just click on the community advisory committees. I started the stubs of all of this already so that you guys can kind of see what we're talking about. So basically in each of these folders, there's going to be all of the reports that we have. It will be meeting minutes. It will be things like that, things that are appropriate and necessary for the board liaison for each of these committees to have access to. And it kind of gives, that way if there's, like with ACSD, if we have a particular report that comes out about special education across the division, that becomes a resource that's going to be important to that board liaison to have access to. And we can't always assume that the board liaison is going to have full understanding of what's been done by a committee in the future. The benefit of doing it this way means that when the new board is voted in 28, it means that the entire folder can be moved forward to theirs, and we're not reinventing the wheel with each board. So, and it also means that we don't have to dig through board docs to find previous versions of minutes or agendas or anything like that, supporting documents. So it just gives us a way to kind of really clearly organize the information. In this folder, if you go back one for me, Janet, if in this folder, you can also see that there's a standing committee folder as well. And so this is, again, a resource for all of us to be able to go in and find out what's going on with everything. And we would have to decide, which information is appropriate to put in here. But if we have a budget committee of the whole, I could see us having this separated by year and having all of those supporting documents be in one location. For me personally, this is the kind of system that I already have set up for myself to kind of keep track of things. The benefit also is that you can actually create shortcuts in your own file system to be brought back to here so that you're not duplicating efforts of particular documents. And the clerk team is going to have to come up with some sort of plan as to how to keep this up to date. It could be that they actually work with the board member that is on that particular committee, or the chair of that committee that can help kind of supplement the information.
So we've created a standing committee folder already and we're using it with governance. We have it for audit, PEC, and CPDC. It's something that my team has been trying to do to keep with the same thing that Ms. Anderson's saying. So we would populate what we have for that into this. I think the big key thing, to Ms. Anderson's point, is making sure that if your staffer is helping you with things on your committee, that they're making sure to share it with us so we can populate it. Because like everything else, we would typically make these folders view only or give the ability to add files, but we want to make sure that nothing accidentally gets deleted.
Exactly.
So we wouldn't give full permission to staffers. So we would need to make sure that staff is sharing with us whatever needs to be added to that folder. And I think that's something that the administration committee actually needs to look at, is how we go about and figuring out when a board member is chairing a committee, what responsibilities are on the staffer of that board member and what lies with the clerk, so there isn't confusion.
Exactly. So, Janet, if you could click back for me one more time. So the other thing is as we develop the training for the advisory committees, this is also where it can live. So there's no question about where any of this content would be and how much access we would have to any of it. And then the school board member toolkit is some of the things that we have already identified that need to be included in that. If you click, Janet, if you can click on school board member toolkit for me, you will see that there is an example of like basic nomination forms. So there are nomination forms that we can put in there that you can copy and create them as specific to your individual district. But I think that this would be a great opportunity for us all to kind of work together. So if somebody has nominated somebody for a particular committee and has the questions already, what's in there for right now is just the APAC. Because I'm looking for a member for the AAP committee. So that right now is in there as an example. But I think that we can use that to build moving forward as a path forward, so that if someone ends up needing to replace a particular member, you don't have to start from scratch. And it means that, we're not all reinventing. There's some amount of help in us all doing things a little bit consistently. And so you can go in and make any changes that you need, make a copy of these things. So that's the idea with that. And then in this folder as well is where the things that are on the list. So best practices, if someone decides that they want to create, like, what's the best practice for nominating committee members with possible interview questions, we can decide whether or not we need generalized interview questions or whether or not we need them specific to each committee. And we would have to probably change the formatting of this just a little bit if we're going to have it be by committee. But otherwise, then we would continue to populate the nomination forms. And then I'm not 100%, I know that the operating manual calls for this right now. I'm not 100% sure what the quarterly email update template needs to look like. And so this is where I would want to ask our fellow board members what types of information, because the intention behind this is that quarterly, if you are the board liaison for a particular committee, you would receive a quarterly update from your committee to know what you need to share with the board, and so we need to figure out what we want in that template. So that is on our side, on the rear, on behind the scenes look at how things are going to be organized moving forward, just to keep us where we can find everything easily. And then the second part of what I was hoping to talk with you all about is the general outline for the proposed training, because I think we're getting really close to actually being done getting the training together that's going to be needed at the beginning of the school year next year. Thinking through this in terms of how we wanted to do it, and I've been talking with Ms. Hall about this just a little bit in terms of, and Ms. Hall, would you like to speak to what you found out about what options we have?
We actually are still working on that. I'm told that there are a number of options. I think there's some agreement that maybe my PDE is not the best place for it. But I'm still working with the chief IT officer.
Okay, I think that's, I mean, our major issues from my perspective is just making sure to be able to track that someone's completed a class and have it be easily accessible, forward-facing. So I think those are the big things that we need. These are the overarching categories of information that would need to be included in that training. And I guess my question to everybody is what mechanism do we see that would be the best method to do this? Because I also I think that we should have more board voices than just PEC. I think that we should get our colleagues involved if they want to talk about a particular thing. I think that the time limit should be no more than an hour. I think it should be easy to go back to a particular thing that you needed more information about, so it shouldn't be just one. It's not like it's an hour-long video. It would probably be a series of short videos that talk about different items. And then the other aspect of it, because much of this training is likely going to be, I'm going to quickly click through, and then I'm going to come back when I have a question or something I didn't understand. And then the other aspect of it is, I think that in addition to creating, I think we should have like a minute-long video that all of us could use to send out if we're looking for a new committee member that talks about, here's the time commitment, here's the, is just an easy kind of sales pitch for if you're looking for a new member. So that's where I am with this. I'm very interested in ensuring the success of this particular training. So I'm happy if, as we move forward with whatever configurations of committees, I would like to stay involved with this product because I think that it's going to be an important one for us to get done. But this is where we stand.
Ms. Anderson, may I just get clarification? This would just be for the community advisory committees, the board community advisory committees? Okay, okay. That are and they're all listed in the governance manual. Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, these are just for our the board committees. This is not for how the committees would work for the rest of the division. And this information is all available in the operating manual. So this is very specific to the information that's already been put out there.
I mean, so I just think that this would be something that would be very valuable for anyone that wants to be on an advisory committee, to have this information and to also have it living somewhere where they could refer to it. And I appreciate your suggestion that each board member have a minute video that we can each use to invite people to participate, because I think that's where sometimes confusion lies. And we have amazing members, and we have members that have participated a long time, and they've learned as they've gone. But I think for somebody that comes on new, it's difficult for them. And I think this is going to be such a helpful tool. And I appreciate that you've taken this on, and that this is something that you've done in your private life. That is a skill set you're bringing to us that I think is really helpful. So thank you.
Are there any things on this list that you guys think we shouldn't include in the training, or anything that you see as missing areas?
So I know you're going to be working on this as we go along. Have you reached out to any of the advisory committee chairs to ask them about what they might think?
Not yet, because they had heavy input on the actual operating manual itself. So this is really our training for how that manual, but it's not necessarily a bad idea to have some of those voices in as people who could talk maybe about each individual committee or anything like that. So having a place to kind of, because this is going to be a generic training for all of the committees, but it would be awesome if we could have some of those longtime members be able to create like a quick discussion about why it's interesting to be on the committee and how the work that they've done is important, so.
I don't know whether this should be a part of the training, but the only thing that I would like to ask, if it's not already been given to committee members, advisory committee members, is access to the prior reports, some other documents, information available, so that if anybody wants to learn what prior, in the past, what the committees did, so that they can go back and take a look.
I think that's a great point, and I think all of those in theory, all of those pieces live on their website, but I think that you make an excellent point. Depending on which framework we use as to house this, I think there are very easy ways that we can have exterior links that would take people directly. So if you are looking for more information specific to your committee, you could very quickly be moved over
So
to
as a
that.
part of training, if somebody could show them, by the way, if you click blah, 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 you have this. This is the last year's report. And to get to that report, the committee had done these works, and they are here. And so that they could see, this is what I'll be doing going forward.
I think it's a great idea.
Yep. We have listed on board docs, going back from till 2020 to 2021, advisory committee reports and any staff responses we've received. So it would be linking to that for those.
I mean, it's also good to have not just the reports and responses, but if the committee also has a meeting minutes, so they see what the committees actually did or do.
Yep, we're working on starting to make sure that those are on board docs as well. I will say board docs our version of board docs is not the easiest platform for this. So as we're looking for new platforms or updated platforms, this is something we're considering as well.
We have aspirations about board docs that we hope that it will be more effective for us in the future.
Because, for the first timers coming on the board, it could be a daunting task, right? What am I doing? I said yes to Mr. Moon, but
Yeah, in addition to what Mr. Moon suggested, I think it would be helpful to have a document that lists all the committee charges, in part because there will be synergies between committees. You'll have committees working on similar or identical issues, and it'll be helpful to just let them know in advance.
Do you see that could be done? One of the concerns that I have is once we get this off the ground, we need to make sure that it survives for a while. Because I have a feeling that the lift to get it up and running is going to be pretty daunting for those of us that take it on. And so I'm concerned about creating any possible data that would need to be updated on a regular basis. So since so many of our committees, their charge changes every year, do you think that it would be enough for them to be able to go in and click on the individual committees to see the charge, or would we need to actually have it embedded in the course?
I would have a standalone sheet. I think we probably already have that in some form in the board office. So
Yeah, I think we do. I just don't know if it would be, you're talking about something that would need to be updated every year. Madam Clerk, is that something that potentially could be added to our website on the outside of each individual folder? So if you were talking about like an overarching look at all of the committee charges, if we created a document that did that every year when charges are voted in by the board, could that be updated every year on the top level page?
For each committee,
No, for an overarching look at, here are all the charges that the committees are going to be looking at.
we do have on our FCPS webpage, just looking at things, a page that goes to community advisory committees. And on that webpage, we could list, because we have on that webpage a link to the annual reports for last year. So on that webpage, we could also add, a link to board docs or a document that has the charges.
I think it's a great idea because Mr. McElveen's not wrong that so many of our charges are overlapping. And when I was meeting with all of my committee members regularly, we would talk quite a bit about how the overlap in the charges were happening. So I agree that having some sort of overarching document, and we could absolutely create that for this year, and then it could just be moved forward easily. So.
So are there any other suggestions? I just really think that this is great work, and I appreciate that you have the skill set to do it. Actually, items 1.05, we already discussed that, the student scholarship for the school board, naming it, we already discussed that, so we can move forward to adjournment. So the June 18th, 2025 meeting of the Fairfax County School Board Public Engagement Committee is adjourned at 2:24. The next meeting of the Public Engagement Committee will be held on July 1st, 2025.
I believe that meeting's been canceled, correct?
Oh, that meeting has been canceled. I'm sorry, has been canceled. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is the last meeting. I thank you all for your participation, and we're done.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your service for the year.
Have we stopped recording? I emailed it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll see you all at, I didn't want to put that, we'll see you all at the open house. I emailed it to you. I emailed you yeah. Yeah, we'll see you all at the, it's Foundation Drive. Did you see,